Hi, Chris here, and today I have a very special and beautiful lock. That is US government military spec Abloy 656. It's a really chunky brass body padlock, about the same size as the other 5 series locks, like a 350. But obviously it's somewhat different in materials and design. And it's quite a mechanically interesting lock as well, actually. It's got more discs in it than any other DD that I'm aware of, certainly. It's got, it claims 14 discs, but that includes a gated spinner and a spacer disc. So really it's 12 plus a spinner. So you get lots and lots of cuts on the key. It's a slightly different key to other Abloy profiles. It's obviously the cuts are a little bit closer because the discs are thinner. I think they're 0.9 millimeters, something like that, compared to the normal sort of 1.5-ish. This one has got a notch in the end just there, and you can see, if I can get it to focus, you can see the sort of profile we've got there. Tools wise, I'm going to be using the same tensioner that I used on the Abloy 260 a few weeks ago. But I've now cut a notch into the end of there, and that just lets it go into the sort of toothed disc that sits at the back of the lock. You'll see that when I gut it. So it's the sort of in the equivalent position to that notch in the key, but of course because it's made of a tube, that actually goes all the way through the thickness. It's kind of similar to picking other profiles, but because it's got more discs, it does take a bit of time at the start to get into getting things in gates and getting decent feedback out of it. This one does have a few mastered discs in, so that makes it a little bit easier than it might otherwise have been, but otherwise quite similar. The other sort of complication for it is because the discs are quite thin, it's harder to stay on the discs. Profiles, especially picking a profile using not perfect homemade tools like that one, the navigation is always a little bit difficult, and with this one it's even harder. But it is a really cool lock, interesting design, and very fun to pick. Right, let's get into the pick. Okay, so let's put this incredibly cool lock in the vise and see if we can get it picked. You see the key working completely normally. Here is that key, so it's lots of cuts and pretty mean bitting as well on that one. And this is cool, I like this. It says on it, US government property, do not duplicate. It doesn't say anything about picking that, so should be fine. So as normal, we'll turn everything as far clockwise as it will go, and all the way to the back of the lock, and start to pick from there. Okay, so that's the back disc and nothing there. Or the next one is binding. Just pop that into a gate. Next one long, loose, little bit of click on that one. Next one loose, loose, loose. I'm not getting anything as I come forward, so I'm just going to go back to the back again. Okay, last disc still loose. Next one along there, that's binding now. Let's go back and check the last disc. Okay, getting a bit of feedback now. That one to negate of some sort. Nudge that one to negate. That's already a negate. That's the spinner. Okay. Okay, and the back disc is binding now, which is good. Just got a fair bit of movement on the tensioner, so I think everything's in a gate, and that back disc is still binding. Still binding. I think that's a max rotation, that one. Next disc along, that's binding. Okay, that's much better now. Feels okay. That one is binding. I bet it was alright where it was actually. That's in a gate and loose. That one feels like it's binding. Can't feel any gates on that one, so it's probably a 0. Okay, I've just nudged the spinner on and got quite a bit of movement. Okay, disc 1 feels good. Disc 2 feels good. Disc 3, that is rubbing now. I think that's set. 4 feels alright. 5, that one's okay. 6, nice and loose. 7, that's rubbing now. Stay on it. Sounded good. Not sure which disc I'm on now. Can't actually feel any gates on that disc. It's a bit funny. Whatever one this is binding hard. Just got loads of movement there. This must be nearly picked. It's loose now. There we go. Lock is open. Not sure which disc I was on there, but doesn't really matter. Okay, to lock that back up to get the tool out. Let's have a look inside. Now, this is a little bit different to most Abloy locks if you're familiar with other Abloys. It doesn't have an end cap as such. Instead, it's got like a cartridge that you can remove completely from the lock, which is kind of cool. I guess it's probably done to make it easy to change the core, to rekey it, or whatever the reason it is, a little bit different. Okay, so that's. I'll just set the lock body to one side, and you can see there a hole in the side. Allen key, a grub screw goes down into to hold that in place, and this sort of cartridge holds the core, and it guts very similar to a cam lock. So there's a bit of a ramp there on the side. How to work this springy sort of copper-coloured washer around. Seems to get stuck on there. There we go. And then we can just drop the core out. Take the sidebar off. So that's the disc pack. So you can see there we've got the driving disc at the back, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 code discs, a sort of double spacer, and then gated spinner at the top. So there's a lot going on there. Just pop the key in so you can see it all working. And it's dropped out slightly. There we go. And you can see the gates all lined up to let the sidebar drop in. Okay, let's take all this apart. Put the spinner and the spacers up there. Go through the rest of the stack. Okay, so that's the guts. There's quite a bit of variety here. So we have some discs like this, more sort of traditional classical profile discs where you've got one true gate and then a couple of false gates. We've also got plenty of these anti-pick discs with the cutout in the middle. There's a couple of discs like this where you've got just a true gate and no false gates, which is quite unusual, quite confusing when you're picking. And then there's quite a few discs with mastering on. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the discs have got extra cuts. Yeah, I think that's probably all we need to see. So if I just try and bring that up without dropping it everywhere. There you go. There's the guts of a US government military spec Abloy 656 profile.